Hey, you guys, it is a little bit later today. I apologize. We're trying so hard to make it around 5, but we had our teenagers had a Bible study over here mid-afternoon, and how about there were 20 kids here?
It was crazy.
It was awesome. It was the best ever. So anyway, we were hanging out with them and listening to them have their Bible study, but then also have a lot of fun. So it was great. But we are late tonight. But we wanted to come in and talk for just a few minutes about casting your cares. I know that as moms and as dads, sometimes that is easier said than done, and yet the Lord specifically tells us to cast our cares on Him because He cares for us. And so often we are very quick to remind our children of that. At least I always have been. But I just wonder how quick we are to remind our own hearts, counsel ourselves in that same point. Because as adults, it's much more tempting to not trust. I think children are under their parents. There's kind of that baked in trust anyway.
Sure.
We're kind of on our own. And so I do think that there is a little bit harder time sometimes trusting for everything. But we're told to cast and leave our cares with Jesus.
Well, and I think that when we talk about casting our cares, casting them away, so I mean, it flows into not being afraid, not worrying, not being anxious. You have Philippians 4, where it kind of gives you the antidote to anxiety, which is prayer and thanksgiving and supplication. And I think a lot of times we fall into this trap of, I got to try harder to not be afraid. I need to try harder to cast my cares on the Lord. And really where a lot of this starts is, what do you know about the Lord? And, are you thankful? It's amazing how many of these negative connotations, like these negative emotions, like you said, don't fear or don't have anxiety. You can actually alleviate. An antidote to those things is thanksgiving, is being thankful for who God is and what God has done for you.
And exalted, because that exalts Him, that builds Him up. It helps us understand so much more why we can cast our cares on Him.
That's right. Is He doing this to you, or is He doing this for you? And I like looking at the original language. When you're studying the Bible, you'll go back and you'll look at the original language, like in the Old Testament. You'll look at Hebrews. It gives you that extra layer and understanding what is really going on. And the Hebrew word for thanksgiving, or for thanks, also is in Hebrew. It means cast. And when you're looking at Hebrew, in English, a word can only mean one thing at a time. So it can either mean, you have cast, which could be, throw away, or it can be cast in a lure, or you can have, what is another example? Cast on your arm.
Yep.
It could only be one of those. But in Hebrew, it actually adds an additional layer. So something can be thanks. You can mean thanks, but it can also mean praise. It can also mean cast. And it just adds an additional layer to that word to be able to fully understand what it means. And so when you look at Daniel, and Daniel, when he is dealing with Darius and the new rule that he put in place because of his advisors that were jealous of Daniel. And
so this is the time when the king passed the law that no one could bow to anyone but him.
Yes, I think it's in Daniel. It's in Daniel 6. And when it says that when Daniel realized what had happened, he goes back up to where he is living, and he opens his window and he turns towards Jerusalem, and he says that he prays to the Lord and gives thanks. And what he is doing there, literally, and this is not just Daniel. This is something that it was like a routine that rabbis and that people who followed the Lord, this is what they did. They would pray, but they would pray in such a way that they actually brought an arm motion in, like they were casting their care on the Lord. So they would go and they would pray. They would get down on their knees, and then they would throw their arms out, and they would just kind of talk to the Lord, and they would speak with their mouth, casting their cares out to the Lord. But they also had that arm motion
Mm-hmm.
And so what Daniel was doing is that he was giving thanks, but he was also casting his
Right.
care on the Lord. And that came from knowing who God
Yeah.
is.
That's awesome. I also love that with that imagery that the Bible gives us, when you cast something out like that, it's not a yo-yo. You can't generally catch it and bring it right back. You have discarded it. You have thrown it. You've cast it to God,
You've given it up.
and yeah, you've released it, and that is so important. I love the fact that we serve a God that we can cast our care. We can cast that child that we're so burdened for. We can cast our marriage issues. We can cast our financial issues, our fears, our sick parents, any of those things that are so deeply, deeply burdening our hearts. We serve a God that we can call Father, and He knows the number of the hairs on our head, and He can be trusted for us to cast our care because we know that He loves us. Cast your care on the Lord and for He careth for you. My mind just went totally blank.
It's getting late in the day.
Yeah, it is. But that is just an incredible reminder.
So I just want to, I've, and many of you heard me talk about this regarding a grateful home. And it's gotten to the point where when we're doing devotions or we're talking about anything about the Bible with the kids, they hear me go into Thanksgiving. You're like, oh, here he goes again. But once you get into talking and studying Thanksgiving, you realize just how important it is to your walk with God.
Yeah.
And it is like a foundational underlying thing that it's a posture is what it is. It's not just an emotion. It's like a posture. It's a reflex. And it impacts everything that you do. And so when you're talking about trusting the Lord, you're talking about faith, you're talking about not worrying, you're talking about not having anxiety. That all starts with Thanksgiving. When you're talking about generosity and giving, that starts with Thanksgiving. And so it is when you're talking about sharing other things, that even to the point of business. When you're doing business, you are willing to let this go for a certain price. And just the pure act of, I put my hard work into this to provide this, whatever it is that you need. And actually, by selling this to you, I'm doing a service for you. That all comes out of Thanksgiving. And so Thanksgiving actually runs in all of these different aspects of the Christian life. And so by cultivating a thankful heart,
and a thankful home,
it makes it easier to do these things that God tells you to do, which one of them would be casting your care on the Lord. If you are thankful for Him and you know who He is, it makes it easier.
He doesn't take a breath. But it really does. It changes your perspective on everything. And that is ultimately what we want to do. We are new creatures. God has made us new from the inside out. And as we get to know Him and His Word better, He's going to change us from the inside out. We're going to be then able to turn around and disciple our children in a much more powerful way, interact with our spouse in a much more loving, generous, grateful way, and impact our community, our church, the world at large, because of the work that God does in each individual heart. And it really, truly is a transforming thing. So,
Well, one last thing about this, when talking about Thanksgiving, all right, I'm on a roll, all right? So one last thing in talking about this is that you cannot simultaneously have Thanksgiving and anxiety. As much as Thanksgiving grows, anxiety shrinks, okay? And so when you're worried, the antidote to that is Thanksgiving. And the more Thanksgiving grows, it makes it easier to deal with worry and fear and anxiety and wanting to hold on to those things you're scared about. And it makes it, if you're worried and you're anxious, it is harder to cast things to the Lord. And so if you are cultivating Thanksgiving, it makes it easier to do that.
Yep.
Okay.
see Philippians 4
That's right.
for for a little bit of Bible on that. But thank you guys for joining us today. I would encourage you, if you're a 365 member, David's session on creating a grateful home from Nashville of this year is in there. It was packed out the door. I mean, and then I heard so many great things about it. So listen to that. If you have TTD at home, or I'm sorry, TTD live, if you have those recordings, he also did
From
the session
Greenville.
there, right?
Yeah.
The Greenville one. So you can get a lot more about creating a grateful home that way. I would really encourage you to pull on those threads to really look into that, because it is transformational, not only for your own heart, but the overflow of it. We've just seen a tremendous difference in the atmosphere of our home as we've turned our eyes more intently on looking through things through a lens of gratitude. So I encourage you to check those out. I'll beat him to it this time. We do ask you to like, share, comment, any kind of interaction with this video that you can give will help us reach more people. And ultimately, it is our goal to encourage as many families as we possibly can all year long. So
and registrations is open for
and
next year for
registrations
2021.
are open. So head to the website. We cannot wait to see you there, and hope you have a great evening, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.